So guys, the Battlefield 2042 beta just came out, and already, as usual, the community is being pretty vocal about it on social media. Some people are even calling for it to be delayed. And so today, that's what we're going to take a look at in this video, and we're going to take a look at some of the biggest concerns the community has so far about the game. Guys, this is BillyEatWorld again, and let's find out. Alright guys, how you going? Welcome to the video, and like I said, today we are taking a look at the community reaction to the Battlefield 2042 beta. And for the most part, I've got to say it's been pretty positive, but needless to say, not everyone is 100% happy, and that's fair because this is a beta after all, and it's going to have a few issues. Now, you might not actually realize this, but DICE devs actually watch YouTube videos. It's a really good way for them to collect feedback. So before you go, I want all of you guys to put your opinion on what we talk about in this video in the comments. As you can see, I've already kicked things off. Let me know what you think is the best thing and the worst thing about Battlefield 2042, and let's get the conversation started. Alright, so to kick off, let's talk about the surface level stuff, and obviously that means the graphics and the audio, which have both copped a bit of flack in the last few days, because obviously the visual look of the game doesn't seem to have grown that much from BF1 and BF5, and some people are suggesting that maybe because the beta is only 17 gig, the final textures aren't in the build yet. Well, look, that's kind of a nice thought, but actually, you might not realize this is actually probably a pretty standard size for a Battlefield beta, and we probably shouldn't expect too many more visual improvements before release. Maybe a few, but nothing as drastic as a complete new set of HD textures. But like I said in yesterday's video, it honestly doesn't really worry me that much because ultimately the gameplay is the most important thing. I'd rather the devs focus on that than focus on just making it look pretty. That's what they did in BF1, and I wasn't a huge fan of that. Now, on the other hand, I've been seeing a lot of complaints about the audio, which was actually kind of surprising to me because when I first played it, I didn't actually notice that many issues. But now that I've actually had a few more hours with the game and people have started to point out some of the issues, well, I can definitely say there's definitely some improvements that can be made. Mainly, it seems like the audio mix is a bit off for everything else around you, and there's definitely certain sounds that can be glitchy as well. But once again, it's not as bad as Vanguard, so I wouldn't stress about it. DICE actually have a dedicated audio team, and I think even a month is plenty of time for them to tweak values and get this stuff right. Now, moving on, obviously another thing people have brought up is the performance issues, and this is probably the one that I think I'm least concerned about myself, because, I mean, I'm actually old enough to remember the Battlefield 4 beta, which was almost unplayable, and that only came out a month before the real game did as well. Now, look, no one likes to see networking-related issues or worse FPS than they'd probably like to see with their 3080, but this is all the kind of stuff that gets polished up at the end of a game's development cycle anyway. The main thing is we're not getting any crashes as far as I can tell, and the servers seem to be holding up pretty decently as well, which is actually an improvement on where we're usually at around this time when it comes to the Battlefield beta. Now, as well as performance issues, we definitely seem to be getting a fair few bugs as well. And the good news is the ones that I've been seeing have all been fairly obvious and repeatable. And that's a really big deal because even though you might think that a bug that happens all the time is really serious, actually, if it happens all the time, it means it's easier to find. And it means the devs have probably already knocked it over. Now, if you think you've found a bug that no one else has found, that's exactly the sort of thing that you need to report to the devs. Everything else I wouldn't really be too worried about. Anything that's super obvious, like for example the AK-24 loadout not saving, has probably already been noticed in internal playtests anyway. And if it's not already fixed, then you can bet it's on a to-do list to fix before release. Now, moving on, this is where we're going to get into some of the stuff that's less unintentional problems and more specific design choices that just aren't gelling well with the community. And probably the big one is specialists, because like I said yesterday, there doesn't seem to be any class-based restrictions. So already we're seeing a lot more of McKay than any other specialist, which is the guy with the grappling hook. Now, not just that, but the strongest criticism I've seen so far is that the specialists aren't faction locked, and so both teams look exactly the same at the moment. It's really hard to figure out who's who. Maybe they just need to do like a tenet or something and give each team a colored armband or something. Either way, at the moment, it's understandably frustrating for a lot of people, and something has to be done about this before release. It's just not going to fly in this particular shape. Now, speaking of McKay, I'm one of those people guilty of using only him at the moment, because probably my favorite thing about Battlefield 2042 is the grappling hook, because it just lets you approach situations in drastically different ways. And that's actually something a lot of people don't like. In previous games, you could feel pretty safe on top of a rooftop, but now you don't really know if someone is going to pop up behind you. Now, with that being said, though, if you are someone that doesn't like Battlefield 2042, it's not going to change. I think we're just going to have to get used to it. But another concern I have seen is about the movement in general. 2042 definitely seems a lot faster, and specifically when it comes to the vehicles, a lot floatier than previous games as well, which a lot of people are comparing to Call of Duty. So definitely let me know what you think about that topic in the comments below. I really want to see your answers to that one. Now, that actually kind of leads me into the next point, because I actually wonder if they increase the movement speed because of the substantially bigger map sizes, which I think initially seemed like a really good idea, except that on Orbital at least, people seem to be clumping together. So basically at some points it feels like you can't even spawn without getting insta-killed, and at other times you can run halfway across the map and you won't even see anyone. And not just that, but there's a lot of open space as well, meaning vehicles are just chewing the infantry to bits. So it'll be really interesting to see how DICE goes about trying to fix this one. But anyway, I don't really have a good segue into this final point, so let's just get right into it. I want to cover visibility, which you might remember was a really big concern of players in Battlefield 5. And look, it doesn't surprise me to see people complaining about it this time, but once again, it doesn't bother me too much because I mostly play hardcore shooters anyway that don't have spotting. Spotting actually seems like it's slightly more strict in this one than even Battlefield 5 was, because in that game, you could spot people passively by suppressing them, and it looks like in this one, you can only spot people with gadgets, which once again is a big thumbs up from me. You guys know I can't stand 3D spotting, but I know a lot of people don't share that opinion. So hopefully DICE will have some solutions for that in the final game that aren't just bringing spotting back. So to finish up, bearing everything I've just said in mind, is any of this worth DICE delaying the release of Battlefield 2042? Because a lot of people are suggesting that at the moment. And honestly, even if it could happen, which I don't even think is a possibility at this point, I just don't think it's worth it anyway. The reality is, DICE have already committed their line on a lot of this stuff. We're way past the design stage at this point, and so all we're going to be really seeing is more polish, more balancing, and some bug fixing. And as much as I think a lot of people are hoping they're going to just completely rip out the specialist system in the last month, that's absolutely not going to happen. We're stuck with it. Now, as for everything else, bearing in mind the build for this beta is apparently 3 months old, and we still have a month to go, most of I think the fixable things are probably going to get fixed in time. And yes, 2042 will still probably have some bugs after it launches, but that's the reality of any big budget game these days. Literally every Battlefield game I can remember has been at least a little bit buggy on launch day. And so I want to end this video by just reminding you guys that by far the worst and most broken Battlefield beta I can remember, and probably the buggiest Battlefield game at launch, was Battlefield 4, which, as we know, went on to be the gold standard of what a Battlefield game should be. So just relax, give it time. DICE have done it before. Let's see if they can do it again. But anyway, guys, that just about wraps up this video. So as always, make sure you let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And just remember that I can't possibly cover every little detail of these topics in one video. I will miss things, that's fine. Just let me know down below. We can have a talk about it later. As always though, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And please feel free to check out the links in the description if you want to see any more of my videos. And don't forget, you can also find my Twitter and Discord links down there if you want to keep in touch. And as always, until next time, see you later and have a good one.